morning, everybody. Welcome to another segment of Flyer. Gonna Flyer, our fourth installment of said segment. I am your host, or actually at this point, we'll probably call it co-host because it's not just been me mainly doing these. Alex Fournette. See my Twitter app below at @afern_Alex. With me today is one of my other co-hosts, Mr. Jamey Baskow from the Flyers Nitty Gritty. How you doing today, buddy?
Yeah, man, I'm doing excellent, Alex. I love coming on. There's a few things. First off, I like you a lot. And Rick, man, his Expos hat gets me on every time, for real. I love that Expos hat.
Montreal Expos. I haven't heard that team name in quite some time.
Well, I just wish they had their team still. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I'll never forget when Jamey Wright threw me that ball from the Montreal Expos. So I'm always been an Expos fan, deep down.
Yeah,
I just keep spilling rumors each week.
Maybe they'll get the next team that they end up pushing in the MLB. I know they're trying to expand to 32, so maybe they'll give them the next
team. No, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
no, I didn't know.
Talk about that. But anyway, let's get right into it. This week we got a good episode for you. As you can see at the top of our screen, it says, "What's next for TK?" Some news came out about a week ago. Credited from @Maher Media Co. Apologies, tongue twisted. Who posted an interesting video bringing up the fact that Travis Konecny's agent and camp are looking for about $10 million a year, which is quite a high number. I gotta say, thank you, Jackson and Co. for posting that, by the way, because that gives us a little bit of material to start with today. So, Jamey, why don't you lead us off? What's your opinion on that, and where do you think things go from here?
To be honest with you, I didn't really have an opinion on it, and I never do on these type of things when they first come out, saying, whether it's the Flyers are interested in this person, the Flyers are interested in that person, the Flyers are interested in that person. Well, yeah, they're interested in a lot of players. They're interested in every player throughout the league that they feel will make them better. So that includes everybody. That includes Sidney Crosby. That includes Connor McDavid. That includes Leon Draisaitl. It doesn't matter. The Flyers are interested because they believe that one of those said players are going to make them better. So in terms of contract negotiations, that's exactly what it is. It's a negotiation. Yeah. Now, they're asking for 10. Cool. Great. All the powers to him. Will he get 10? Hell no. And he knows that. But you start high and then you go low. You meet somewhere in the middle. So I'm not saying that they're going to meet at $5 million. No, they'll meet around what I believe is 6 to 7 years for $8.5 million per. That's probably what it's going to be. Anywhere from 8 to 8.5. I say around more towards 8.5 because there was a very good comparable that was given by Kevin Kurtz of The Athletic, and one very good comparison was Timo Meier. Both are similar players. Both have put up the similar stats to one another. Actually, but he signed for 7 years. 8.8 million per.
Yeah, I think it was 7 by 8.8 in New Jersey.
And so Travis Konecny, I think will get 6 or 7 for 8.5 million per. That's what I've always thought that. I've always believed that with Travis Konecny. So when that initial video came out, and then Flyers fans, you know how it is, man. They love to talk. They're very passionate. It's not even that they're complaining. It's just they love to talk about hockey. That's what they do. And they are very powerful and very knowledgeable about not only the team, but what each player should salary-wise should be getting. And if they believe 10 million is going to be too high, which I believe it is, then so be it. But by golly, it's going to be it. So when these first things come out, I don't jump all over them. Very, very rare will I tweet something about it. I did tweet out something about Wade Allison today, and he's a former Flyer. It's not official he's going into the KHL. It's just I would say Dynamo Minsk, but it's a very credible rumor, and it could very well happen in the near future, but it just hasn't happened yet. And a lot of people thought it was, and that's why I put out that tweet today. Was like it wasn't official, but when these rumors and everything pop up, I try not to get involved, to be honest with you.
I get you that. So here's my opinion on this. So obviously, I agree. No shot in hell should he even sniff that 10 mil range. This negotiation is going to be very telling and interesting to me because I love Travis Konecny, the player. There's mixed opinions on the guy on social media. I know there's a big chunk of our fan base that likes him. There's a big chunk that would love to move him to try to get maximum value. His value couldn't get higher. And I kind of see both sides of the argument here. Like the Flyers are trying to get younger. They want to have a certain like timeline of players in that age group. And want to all come in at the same time. But at the same time, I do believe you want to have a few good veteran leaders that can still play at a pretty
good absolutely. Yeah.
So I can definitely see the argument on both sides. My big fear with Konecny, I would love to resign him, but it has to be at the right price.
I agree.
As we were just talking there, 6 years, 8 mil would probably be good for me. I could at least tolerate that. I don't want to go past that 6-year mark because when we look at a guy like Konecny and his style of play, players like that, he gets into the boards hard. We went over this last episode. Gets into the boards hard. Maybe it was 2 episodes ago. Anyway, gets into the boards hard, plays gritty, uses his body a lot, plays a lot bigger than his size indicates, occasionally fights too. And another thing to mention is he does have a little bit of an injury history. He had the oblique last year.
He has that weird injury one fluke injury usually throughout the year. Something in that nature.
About every year that misses him a couple of weeks. And last year he had something. I think it was like January the year before. He was actually on pace for a higher goal total and a higher point total last
40, 45, something like that.
But regardless, he's been consistent since Giroux has left. He's kind of stepped up to be this team's top forward, at least statistically. But my biggest fear with, as I said, his style, how long is that prime going to be? How long do you anticipate Konecny playing at that level?
Right.
Is he a guy that you can rely on past that, say, 3rd year of that extension to play at that level? Because what I worry about, if you give this guy 8x9, for example, or 8x8.5, say year 3 or 4, he really starts to show shades of decline. Is that going to turn into another contract where you look at, like, say, Sean Couturier? I mean, his is completely different because he had 2 major back surgeries. So I'm a little bit comparing apples to oranges here. But what worries me when it comes to Konecny is when all those injuries and that physical wear and tear starts to build up, but playing all those board battles and all the beatings your body has taken over the years, is that going to be something that can be sustainable and hold up over the longevity of that contract? So I'm willing to bring TK back, but for me, the term over the money is more important in this. I want him back. I can 8.5 is kind of like the absolute max. I would prefer maybe around the 8 mil range. I don't think a half mil is going to be a game changer. But if I'm giving him 8.5 mil, 6 the absolute most, I would prefer 5 years. But 5 to 6 years, I don't want to even sniff past that. Just because, I mean, there is an example with a guy like Brad Marchand who aged like fine wine and is still, I mean, just now is starting to decline a little bit. But a guy like Konecny, I don't know if you're going to get that style because there's a lot more examples of players who play like his style. I mean, I'm not saying this play has fallen off, but Timo Meier, right after he got his extension, that he had a rough start. I mean, you're up here in New Jersey.
There is one thing that goes for Travis Konecny, though, that's a shame. And it's his point totals and his goal totals have increased just about every single season. They haven't dipped, and he set new career highs with both again. So I think that alone, I think, sticks him at 8. You know what I mean? And that alone, just by off that basis alone, not to mention that he is the Flyers' best player. So what the Flyers could do is, hey, prove it, and then we'll sign you around the around the trade deadline. Like they did with Owen Tippett, and Ryan Poling,
when he was in the trade block.
Yeah. So I think that that could be something said to the camp. I don't think that, this is just my personal opinion, they try to start negotiations around July 1st, which is the first eligible date. I don't think that they will go past September. I think that TK would want a fresh, just like like Owen Tippett for that matter, or even Carter Hart. I don't think wanted to restart, or try to start some talk before, not saying that they had talks, or something of that nature. But I don't think that he would want that, in the way lingering, just like Claude Giroux. Claude Giroux, remember that season that there was a big question. Well, are you trying to negotiate? And he was like, no, I'm focused on the season. That's it. My agent and I will talk around, at the end of the year, end of season. So the TK will be the same way. I think that they're not going to come to, I think they'll negotiate. I don't think they'll come to an understanding until around the trade deadline. That's just my personal opinion.
I can agree with that. Like when September comes, you want to go in hockey mode. You don't want to be really worrying about the contract negotiations and everything like that. You don't want to go into a position where you look at things and like, is this going to start becoming a distraction, not just for the team?
We could even say August, because Torts is very big on having these guys here 2 to 3 weeks before camp starts, and usually August is when TK starts to trickle back in. And so him and his wife and the family, they go, like sometimes he'll go home, vice versa. Sometimes he'll come. At the very least, TK is here by the end of July, beginning of August, every single year. So if it's not done I think by the end of August, that is it for him. Because he's now focused on training camp. That's just what he does. And a lot of others are the same way. Owen Tippett's the same way. He comes back, towards that end of July, beginning of August. Joel Farabee here throughout. So if it's not a done deal by August, by all means, trust me, it's probably not going to be a done deal until the trade deadline.
So at the end of this, like, but back to the point at hand when it comes to this, hopefully this, like I said, my biggest fear is this doesn't become into another anchor contract at the end of it. I still think he's going to be worth, or at least close to whatever he gets. At least for those first
first
years minimum.
Mm-hmm.
But the big thing is, for me at least, as I've stated, is term. And as you just stated, this has to be something that over these next 2 months, you either hammer down and make sure you get this done, or you push it off till March and off season.
You raise a good point with the term, and a lot of Flyer fans, and people like yourself, in media, has said that. How many 8-year plus or 6-year plus contracts are you going to hand out? Travis Sanheim's, filtered down with a heavy contract. Owen Tippett now has an 8-year contract. Sean Couturier signed an 8-year contract. So how many? Joel Farabee has 3 years left on his contract. How many 6+ year contracts are you going to hold down for a team that is on the cusp of making the playoffs? So I understand that argument as well. And that's why I'm like open to whatever. I think they'll sign. I think he will resign for what I thought, but I can understand the arguments of term.
Yeah, me personally, I was a lot more confident that he was going to sign probably 2 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
I still think he does sign, but like before I was like 90-10.
Yeah.
Now I'd say it's more like 70-30.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that.
I definitely feel like that Danny's going to look at the situation and explore all avenues. I mean, if this team really is committed to getting younger, he'd be a perfect trade asset to maybe even get into the top 15 if someone's willing to dangle a pick out. I mean, look at the Alex DeBrincat trade that Ottawa ended up doing. They ended up trading away the 7th overall pick. Not saying you'd get the 7th overall pick for Konecny, or even that would even be available, or a pick of that quality. But the Flyers traded away, I think, 13 for Rasmus Ristolainen a couple of years back. So it's not unheard of to trade a high-end player for a high-end player.
No, I think if they move up a few slots, I think they're going after Sam Dickinson from the London Knights. The Flyers top brass really scouted him. Really, not only him, but
you like, right?
Huh?
That's a defenseman you like, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Sam. He's a left-handed defenseman. The guy, he's a juggernaut. That's exactly what he is. He's excellent. He'll pair well with Oliver Bonk even, as crazy as it sounds. I mean, that power play tandem there, that's a crazy. He knows how to keep pucks in at the blue line. He's very good. He's well-rounded. It's gap control, and he's only getting better. He was a rookie this past year for the London Knights, and he's making quite the name for himself for sure.
Flyers really seem like they had a lot of connections out in London out there.
They do, and Sam O'Reilly is another name to keep an eye on. I would keep an eye on Sam. We'll talk about that. But
we're going to get into the draft stuff a little bit later. Let's save that for now. You have any closing thoughts on the Konecny stuff before we move?
No,
on?
I just think I think they will get it done. I think he'll re-sign. But in the event I'm incorrect, but I think he'll re-sign before the season begins. In the event I am incorrect, I think by August that's TK's cutoff. Boom, end of August. That's it. I'm going hard because those next few weeks leading up into training camp, he's going to train hard like he does every single year. And he's training right now. I'm just saying, coming back to Voorhees, that's it. Bang for him. Once he comes back to Voorhees, that is the end all.
Okay. Me personally, I'm going to probably say I think this ends up getting pushed past August. I think this ends up getting pushed to the deadline. Just because of all the, obviously that's how negotiations work.
Yeah. Absolutely.
This could be something that I think that both sides end up saying, let's revisit. They're going to talk. I'm not saying they're not going to.
Yeah.
They're going to say, let's revisit
come
trade deadline, see where we're at, see where you're at.
Yeah.
See if TK's taking another step forward and maybe he's on pace for a 40 whole year. And he's willing to stay. He stays healthy the whole year. Maybe they say, all right, maybe we feel a little more comfortable to that 8.5 million.
Well, listen, I'll ask Danny Briere that question when we see him at Dev Camp. We're going to see him at Dev Camp. Not going to bother him during the draft. Vasily's going to be present for us, representing us at the draft. I wouldn't want to bother him at the draft on draft night in terms of that aspect, or even pre-draft. But I'll ask him at Dev Camp because Dev Camp will be around July 1st, July 2nd. Somewhere around that ballpark, because usually they'll have the draft. The draft will end up 28th, right? So you got 29th, 30, maybe at the end of June there. But I believe July 1st, 2nd is like when Dev Camp will begin, and that's fair game to ask Danny Briere that question. So I'll definitely ask him.
We'll have to we'll have to revisit this after that answer comes.
Right. You'll be the first one to know.
Beautiful. So let's move on a little bit. We had a little bit of a scare a few weeks ago with Alexei Kolosov. Now it looks like that report was debunked. Everything's going to be staying here. Let me ask you this. What was your opinion when it first came out, and how did you react? And what do you think the future holds for this guy? Is this going to be someone, because obviously we have Urson and Fedotov that are going to be up again this year and probably next year too. What's a realistic timeline you can see Kolosov potentially make his way into the big leagues?
Well, I'm going to be honest. I wasn't a fan of bringing him over towards the tail end of the season like that. That was just my honest opinion. I don't disagree with the Flyers organization. I understand, very often anyway. I do at times, and I will. I wasn't a fan. I'm not a fan of bringing Europeans over that late in the season. And for that very reason, after the season ends in about a month, what do? They typically get homesick and, stuff like that if they're already not homesick. So then what? Well, this is a part that he can't just go back to Belarus or say, hey, just go back home or go back to Russia, because his family we don't know where his family resides now. Does he live in Belarus? Does he live in Russia? Because he was playing, in the KHL there. So where does he play now? You know what I mean? So he might have a home base in Russia now. So he can't just go back home and say, hey, I'm here, given the situation, that's ongoing over there. I've never personally talked to him to ask him how close he is to that, or if he has family, you know what I mean? Maybe he doesn't want to go home, in the same token, I can understand why he's homesick. And he's 20, he's 21, 22 years old, I would be homesick as well, if I, were in my home up until the end of season and then I come here. Now he elected to come here when he did. It wasn't like the Flyers forced his hand and said, hey, come report to us. He elected to come here, and then he saw, that he's homesick. So was it concerning? A little bit. I'll be honest, I was a little concerned at first, but after the dust settled, that's why I don't tweet or do anything like right away. I try to like break down each and everything.
And everything to be solidified.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
talk to sources, talk to this person. So when you do, it's like, oh, he's homesick. Okay. Heat of passion might come out and say, hey, maybe I will return to Dynamo. But I'll tell you this, if he went back to the KHL, there's no way he's coming back here. That's just my personal opinion.
That would have been
once you make that leap back, I don't think he will come back. That's just my personal opinion. That's not sources or anything. That's just my feeling. That's my opinion. That's why I didn't want him to go back. Nor do I think that the Flyers would have allowed him to go back, because honestly, he's binded by a contract with Philadelphia. Philadelphia has to sign off and loan him back to the Mint.
He's already signed.
He can't just go back. Right. Yeah. He was already signed with Philadelphia. He was just loaned to Dynamo for that season to finish off. They were just being nice and allowing him because that was his wish. Hey, I'll sign, but can I? Sure. Okay. He's binded by the contract, so it's not just he could just go back. So yeah, I was in fear. If he went back, that's it. Yeah. He's not coming back to Philadelphia, not coming back to the Phantoms. Now, is he mad about playing time? No, I actually don't think it's that. He knew what he was getting into when he first came here. Cal Peterson at that time was on fire. Cal Peterson is one of the very many reasons why the Phantoms made the playoffs. People, there's a lot of Peterson haters. I could understand how he played in Philadelphia at times.
Pittsburgh game, yeah.
That inconsistency, with him. I understand it. I'm just saying, if it wasn't for him, the Phantoms may have not have made the playoffs, because he was the most consistent goaltender for them, and he was absolutely rocking when he went from Philadelphia back to the Phantoms. He was rocking. At one point he had a .939 save percentage, in like the first 3 or 4 games that he played for them. So if it weren't for Peterson, they've not have made the playoffs. They definitely wouldn't have won the first round of the playoffs. And I'll tell you, winning that game against Hershey, that was one of the very many reasons they won, was because of Cal Peterson's play. So is he upset by that? No, I don't think so. I think that he knew the Flyers they communicate very well. One scout that is very underrated is Kenny Hudakov. He's the scout for, in Russia there. He does a phenomenal job. He's one of the very many reasons why Philadelphia landed Matvei Michkov. There's no doubt in my mind, yes, his fingerprints were all over that. Yeah, quote unquote, right? I just had to throw that.
I see what you did there.
But Kenny does an excellent job with, he's an excellent scout, and he doesn't get enough clout, within the Flyers media, within the media, fans alike. But I'll give him clout because I think he's a hell of a scout. But there's no doubt that he communicated with Alexei, and as soon as they were thinking about bringing him over, which again, I could understand why Philadelphia wants him here. Hey, he's our product. Let him try to get used to the flavor, the culture, ahead of time, with some of the vets like Tanner Lazinski that's down there, but I think if he links with Ivan Fedotov is going to be around town, throughout the course of the summer. If he links well with him, I think he should be okay, because they both know each other. Obviously, they both have the same language. They know each other's culture very well. Then they could learn the culture here together.
Yeah. The whole thing that scared me is when it was brought up, I thought that there was really a possibility that there may have been some miscommunication about his potential playing time. And that's what my biggest fear was. Now, I didn't know that maybe he didn't know what was going on with the Fedotov situation. Like maybe because he signed his ELC, at the beginning of the year, I believe.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think
Alexei, it was like a month before training camp, somewhere around there.
Mm-hmm. So what I was worried about at the time, maybe they didn't think that there was any real path for Fedotov to come here. Maybe they spoke to him and said, hey, listen, when you're done overseas, we're going to bring you in. You're going to be competing for the starting gig with Hart Nursing, not knowing what was going on with Carter Hart at the time, besides the point. But anyway, and then once that fell through and they knew there was an opening, he may have thought that there was a real possibility to be playing up with the big leagues potentially as soon as 2024-25. That was my biggest fear. now that he's at least going to be solidified with the Phantoms at least for a year or two, likely.
Yeah.
I'd wonder. I think that ends up being more of a committee, at least to start the year next year, with him and Peterson, and then maybe they slowly transition him into being the starter, especially since Cal's contract runs out at the end of the year. I don't think they're going to buy it out. They'll probably just bury him in the minors and just wait for that to expire. They already have so much money tied up on.
Think about it. If there's goaltending injuries, Cal could be traded. You know.
He could, exactly. And Flyers will eat half the contract.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
A quarter of a year rental or whatever.
Yeah.
But back to my original point, yeah, I think like I said, my biggest fear was miscommunication amongst his potential playing time, where he was going to be. Now it looks like a lot of that smoke has settled. That may have been solidified. I'd like to see that be a clear path where this guy is in Philly or like with the big leagues by maybe the earliest 2025, 26. I don't know if that's realistic since both Urson and Fedotov both are going to be under contract the next 2 years. But, crazy things happen. Who the heck knows? But I'd liked him to potentially find a way by 2025, 26 to see if there's a path for him to potentially play some games in Philly. I know we'll probably maybe even give him a preseason game or two this year just to see how he works against the big boys. But I want him. My main goal for him is I want to see this guy become the eventual full-time starter of the Phantoms before the season is over next year. But
that's a realistic shot. He could very well be the starter. He's the starter of the future. Cal struggles. He comes in. If he plays well, they're not going to relinquish and just say, "Okay, Cal, you get the reins here." But injuries do occur, and they occur to every team. And I don't care. It could happen to the Philadelphia Flyers too. For some reason, they're always haunted at the goaltend position, and that was what yet one another bugger that fans were like, "Oh, really? Again?" Because it's a never-ending saga with Flyers goaltending, right? It seems like it's year in and year out. Listen. We just went through it with, I say we as everybody, but Ivan Fedotov. No one knew if he was going to come or not, right? And then all of a sudden he appeared. So, so it's just never ending with Flyers goaltending. So don't throw it by that he might even play playing time with Philadelphia next season. If Fedotov goes down, God forbid, with an injury, or Sam Ersson goes down, God forbid, with an injury, or one vice versa is struggling, will they, let's bring in the other young guy and see how he does. Don't throw that by John Tortorella. He's here to win hockey games. He's not here to be these guys' best friends and everything else. He treats them with respect. Yeah. But at the end of the day, it's about winning hockey games here. He knows what Flyers fans expect. Flyers fans expect the playoffs next season or bust. It's not, hey, you get another year to be on the cusp of the playoffs. It's either playoffs or bust next season. And that's not being said enough, but that's just reality. Are the Flyers there yet? That's a question for another time. But
we'll see how this
offseason but that's what I mean. Circling back to Alexei, I wouldn't throw it by him that he sees a few games in Philadelphia next season either.
The thing I want to say that there is a chance to make playoffs, but I could also see this team have a potential step back this year too. I think a lot of, that this team was a tale of two teams between the first half and second half.
Yeah.
First half of the season, they were clicking on all cylinders. After
they were phenomenal.
Like mid-January, I finally put the switch. I said they're making it. Like this team. Yeah. And then after the All-Star break, the second half of the season began. They started good out of the gates. I think they beat Florida twice. They beat a few other half-decent teams. But they never had that same feeling. And it makes me wonder, I don't want to put the expectations too high on the Flyers next year because I could realistically see them miss the playoffs again next year too. I don't know. But
this is how you know this is yet another season of Flyers hockey where they haven't made the playoffs. Look how tan I am. Like I'm never this tan, in May, you know what I mean? So it's like I'm spending a lot of time outdoors with the kids, It's like whatever.
Jamey, I can't stand it. I just burn and turn into a strawberry.
Yeah.
I now know how Owen Tippett feels like because he can't. It doesn't look like that poor guy can tan either. But
Rick
anyway,
tans well. If Rick takes off that Expos hat, he tans well too.
But yeah, quickly, one last point before we move on, just to talk about expectations for next year too. I do think playoffs are a possibility, but I don't think it should be a guarantee, at least in my humble opinion. Just take a look at this team. There are still some holes. Will the power play finally take a step forward? They've been dead last in the league the last 3 years, which is absolutely mind-boggling to think about.
Yeah, how is that?
It's nuts. But they're going to have to get more from the power play eventually. How is the goaltending tandems going to handle? Is Fedotov really going to fit in instantly with a full off season now under the Flyers system? It's going to be interesting. Like I said, I don't want to give them sky high expectations. I think, but I think playoffs are possible. But I think it's at this moment, depending on what the off season looks like, I could have a completely different tune a month from now. Once the draft and the agent moves in some trades.
Yeah.
But at this very moment, recording this on June 1st, I think it's a better chance they miss than make it, but we'll see.
Yeah.
So let's move on. Do a little Michkov sprinkle. I'm not going to spend too much time on it because we did a lot of that last week. He's coming. That's what I'm hoping.
He's still coming. He's still coming, and I guarantee it'll be a week before the draft when it's watch. His first appearance.
We got to put a date on that. Today is June 1st.
I say June 22nd.
June 22nd. You heard it here first, Flyers fans. Jamey Baskow predicts the Matvei Michkov announcement will be made Saturday, June 22nd.
Yep. And he will appear. He will appear at developmental camp on July 1st, July 2nd.
You're going to hear the glass shatter like a Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Oh, you won't be able to get in. It'll be a camp. Listen, people are going to camp out to see Matvei Michkov. You watch. I'm serious. There will be some encampments.
This is the best prospect the Flyers have had since Eric Lindros.
It's going to be door to door. It's going to be door to door. And you remember, they always end it with like a tournament, like a 3-on-3, 4-on-4, something of that nature. Wait for that. Listen, you're going to have to camp out to literally get in there.
I need to see a line of Tippett and Michkov on the same line with that level of speed.
When you arrive in the Voorhees, there's going to be a line going all the way to Vito's to get in that place, man.
There's going to be a waiting list to see him. Mr. Michkov can't see you today. There's too big of a line.
Yeah, right? Man.
But yeah, I agree. I do think he's still coming. I have my percent chance is like 80. So
yeah.
I think there's way too much smoke at this point. This is the calm before the storm. We haven't really heard anything in about a week and a half, 2 weeks now. So let's see where things are in 2 weeks. I mean, I still think there's a good chance. I think everything's closed doors. Danny's, putting lines through his T's, dotting his I's, making sure everything's good with this. So let's push this towards the draft.
There's one other tidbit I wanted to share on Matvei.
Go for it.
If people were paying attention this past week, he was seen playing tennis with one of his friends, apparently. But he was wearing but he was wearing a Russian national shirt. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's always interesting because he was seen, working out with a Flyers t-shirt. Now he's wearing a Russian national t-shirt. Isn't it interesting that there's no SKA t-shirt?
It's interesting you bring that up. He took a picture with one of his buddies, it looked like, too. It was a backwards hat. It had an NHL logo on it.
Yeah.
And it had little orange circles around it.
Yeah.
That's probably another Flyers hat just on backwards.
I'm telling you.
But, yeah, I think Michkov's still coming. So, which leads me to the draft point. Do you draft someone with this first pick to play with Michkov, or do you do it as best available player? Do you go more concentrate on a guy that would fit best in the mold of Matvei's style, or what seems like the guy you want to go for, Dickinson? Do you go for best available for biggest need potentially?
So the Flyers will know well before the draft, and they probably already know. I'm going to be honest with you. They probably already know if he's coming or not. Yeah. It's just they can't say anything about it due to legalities. There's some hurdles that they have to overcome, some legal hurdles. So I remember Ann Sanfilippo mentioning that there's a player maybe involved or something of that nature on his recent podcast that he had on Snow the Goalie. So when you factor all that with the legal things, I definitely knew. So like the legal hurdles alone, that could take time to iron out. It's not like, oh, the Flyers want this done today or SKA wants this done today. Let me jump. They're not going to jump. It's just not how it goes. They don't jump here for legal hurdles either. You know what I mean? Hey, if Alex wants something done, I'm going to hurry up because it's Alex. No, they'll work at their own pace. So this stuff takes time, and but they will know before the draft. With that being said, I think they already know, and I firmly believe that they will move up to 9 with Calgary. I think Tij Iginla is going to Montreal. Iginla's that piece. If Iginla is off the board by the time Calgary drafts, I think Calgary would then move back because I think that would be Calgary's guy, given the history with, obviously with Jerome and stuff of that nature. I think that's their guy. But if he's off board by the time Calgary picks, by the time Calgary selects, I think that is the team the Flyers can move up with. The only team the Flyers can move up with. When you're looking at the avenues, all said teams are rebuilding teams. Calgary is yet a rebuilding team like Philadelphia, right? Every team within the top 11 there is a team that is trying to get better, they're rebuilding. So they're not just going to say, okay, Philadelphia wants this, let me move up.
I think New Jersey might be the only exception there, but yeah, they're not.
I think if you want to say that in the grand scheme of things, that's a very young team. I think that based off the year they had the year prior, I think their expectations were unfortunate high leading into this past season.
In the Cup final
I really thought I thought that they would finish better than Philadelphia myself. So I would be one of those, but I think it's still unfortunate because they are all young players. You don't know how they're going to gel. You don't know how they're going to work out all of them together, but they're essentially rebuilding as well. So that's the only team I could see, that the Flyers can move up to. If they did, I think they snagged Sam Dickinson. I think that's who they want. If Michkov comes, I think they select the defenseman first. If they do move up, they may not have that second pick, or they may. But I would have to say no, they wouldn't have, that Florida pick. I think that would be worked up in the deal somehow, to move up to pick 9. But I think Sam Dickinson would be their guy. If they stand pat at 12, let's just say hypothetically, Michkov's still coming, and the Flyers don't move up to 9. The rule of thumb is draft the best player available. The Flyers have been handcuffed by that in the past, where they haven't drafted, best player available. Sam Moran was one, right? He was off board a bit. He was a little bit of a shock pick. Pronger wanted him, right? That whole thing came out that Pronger was a good guy, and it's unfortunate
that Pronger too with the eye injury. Yeah.
Yes, the whole thing. Sam probably could have been a very good player. It's a shame, the whole thing with injuries. I don't even want to talk about it. It's so upsetting and stuff when these guys get hurt. Just like Nolan Patrick, just like the Nolan Patrick situation. It's just really unfortunate that these really good players end up, getting hurt, and if they're injury riddled for their whole career. With that being said, I think that the Flyers are in a situation to where they can't draft best player available. They have to draft best player available. This is a massive draft for Philadelphia. They have to nail this draft. This rebuild, you want to spearhead the rebuild in the right direction. If they mess up this draft, they have now set themselves back 2 to 3, possibly 4 years. They have to nail this draft. This is possibly the biggest draft Philadelphia will ever have, in recent memory. That's how big this is, because you want to make the playoffs, you have to nail your first round draft picks. They've had year after year to where they've had first round draft pick either bust or get hurt. Not mention Tyson Forrester. Tyson Forrester is the odd man out there.
Oh, what an exception!
Most first round picks that the Flyers have had have been a bust. Or
Ryan, for example.
Yes. It's just bad luck. Cutter Gauthier. I mean, it's like it seems like the first round draft picks is like an enigma for this organization, and it has been for years. So they have to nail it. You have to start nailing your first round draft picks. the loss of Cutter Gauthier. Now, if Cutter was still here in Philadelphia, this draft may not be as big as what it is
already.
But with the loss of Cutter, it just adds that spice in. They have to nail it. Yeah. They have to nail this first draft selection. They have to. These 2 first-round picks, if the Flyers make them, they have to nail them.
Oh, I absolutely wholeheartedly agree.
They have to draft best player available, whether that's a winger, whether that's a center, whether that's a defenseman. That's who they have to draft.
When I look at the Flyers prospect pool, after Michkov, there is a decent drop-off. You had 2 blue-chip guys, and Matvei Michkov and Cutter Gauthier. Cutter obviously didn't want to be here. He wanted out. He's in Anaheim. You got a very high potential defenseman in Jamey Drysdale. We'll see how that turns out. Still, jury's out on him. I think there's so much untapped potential there, but we'll see. That's something to reevaluate 2-3 years from now. He obviously has injury history, but again, that's a discussion for another day. But when you look at that now, that kind of eliminates that. Now you only have 1 high-end blue-chip prospect.
Yeah.
Oliver Bonk, he could be something good. He could be a number 2, number 3 defenseman.
And he was and Oliver, yeah. I mean, it's unfortunate that he's going to be pegged there.
I mean, Denver Barkey looks like he exploded out in London. He could be one of those later round picks. One of the biggest things I feel like that's so underrated when it comes to drafting is being able to hit those mid-round picks. You look in 2017 what the Dallas Stars did when big reason why they're in the playoffs still now.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. They hit Jason Robinson and Jake Ottinger, both mid-round picks. But I mean, I think they were second or third rounders each. They may have both been second rounders. I'm not 100% sure. But 2 picks right there that turn into stars. Look at Wyatt Johnston too. That kid, 20 years old, another mid-round pick that has exploded onto the scene.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not asking that every single one of your mid-round picks need to hit. That's unrealistic. You're never going to get anything like that. But you need to be able to hit some of these mid-round guys too. I'm hoping Denver Barkey can be that guy.
He will be. I'm very high on him too. Yeah.
I think he had 102 points this year in London. Now, mind you, leagues are much different. But when you have talent, that talent can transition, and you can use that confidence boost to develop better. You can, He plays now he's a little undersized, but he plays a style of play that I really like. So we'll see if he ends up transitioning.
He reminds you of TK. He reminds you of TK on the ice. I mean, he plays ball to the wall. He likes to be physical. He likes to win those board battles. He likes to have the puck on his stick. He doesn't shy away from physicality. And that's what I really like about him. Now, with that being said, same thing with Bonk. I don't want them to be placed in this position where they have to come in, in a little earlier than anticipated. Let them go at their own pace. Let them develop. We don't want them to be pushed. And that's what I mean. These first-round draft picks have to start to hit. They have to. They have to start to hit. This organization needs these first-round draft picks to hit. I think Matvei is one. It's said when he's coming. Although I think he's coming, this season. If he doesn't, it's still they need to hit their first-round draft picks. They have to. They have to start nailing their first-round draft picks in particular.
Bring up Sam Dickinson. I'm going to need to do a little more research on him.
So the thing about that is, I think they will know if Michkov is coming. If Michkov comes, I could see them wanting to move up to snag a defenseman because they have the winger, they have that power, they have that forward, that elite talent that John Tortorella and Danny Briere have talked about, and he's coming a few years earlier than expected. So I can see them wanting to draft maybe a defenseman first. That's the best player available. He would be at that position. So that's why if they know if Matvei's coming, if he's coming, then they may move up to snag Sam. If he's not coming, then I can see them standing pat at 12 and,
move forward.
Yeah.
So I think what I put is this team's biggest need is they need to find a number 1 center. Now, I don't know if there's a true number 1 center at 12.
Yeah.
But I think the guy I really have had my eye on, there's 2 people. One's a winger, one's a center. Obviously, I love Cole Eiserman. I have a little bit of a homerism for this guy because he's from Newburyport, Massachusetts, funny enough, which is where my girlfriend's family is from, where she's her family actually knows his family. So that would be very cool.
That's cool.
This kid is a pure scorer. In the Flyers, I would feel like they need a good, pure left winging scorer, which is what I think he would fit the mesh at perfectly. Now he has other parts of his game that need work. I don't know his defensive game. Obviously, I don't expect him to ever be anything close to a Selke guy or anything like that. But his defense could get better. He seems like, from what I've read, that he's sometimes out of position. So,
Yeah.
But, and then there's Berkey Catton. That guy.
Oh, he's awesome.
So now, if he's available at 12, I'm flipping the table, running to the board, and slamming the Berkey Catton button until it breaks. I want that guy here. This Flyers team has really been building an identity on scoring on the rush and attacking in transition. That guy fits that mesh perfectly from what I've seen with him. He is a guy that knows how to start and create offense off the rush. And imagine putting him a few years down the line with him, Tippett, and Michkov. A guy like him creating plays starting off the rush with two speed demons on your opposite wings. That would be such a dangerous line to watch. I would love a guy like him who can really just create offense by himself.
Yeah.
You have – and the only guy, there's the two different styles of player. Like Morgan Frost is a guy who can create offense, but I feel like he does it in a different aspect. Where Berkey Catton, I feel like, is a guy that would just be able to mesh with his teammates so well. He is more of a playmaking style to him, and I think he's a guy who can generate. Generate offense.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So that's a guy I'm going to need to look up a little bit of Sam Dickinson because I haven't watched him too much.
Yeah, well, you could watch the Memorial Cup tonight, the last games tonight. I think it's on NHL Network, if I'm not mistaken. He's a good one. But I like Catton, too. You can't go wrong.
Yeah.
Although I think he goes a little earlier than expected. But
yeah, the team I'm afraid of that snags him is New Jersey. I really hope not. That seems like a good fit for him, unfortunately. But Jamey, do you have any closing remarks before we wrap this up?
No, I just want to say thanks for allowing me to come on, and it's going to be interesting here in Flyerland. In about 13 or so days, the buyout period will start. It's usually around June 15th, but with the Stanley Cup Final being pushed back a little later, it could be 72 hours after the Stanley Cup ends, if it ends before June 15th. So look for maybe that the Flyers buy out Cam again. I would keep him until the trade deadline. I would trade. I would try trading him. Letting him reestablish his career here in Philadelphia. Although it didn't. From his exit interviews, it didn't sound promising. But that's just my perspective. But that's the critical dates are the buyout. Let's see what happens during the buyout period, and it lasts until June 30th. And then, of course, a little bit before that, you have the draft around the 27th, 28th. And, so it's going to be a good time at Flyerland. Towards at the end of June, should have Michkov news. It should be interesting. So you all take care. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate you, man.
Jamey, we plan on having you on more, I hope.
Let's go. Yeah, you can have me anytime. Anytime, brother.
Awesome. And we plan on doing one more of these before the draft.
So that'd be great.
We'll talk about it then. I think we'll dedicate a whole episode to go in depth with it. Mainly just
rounds 1 through 7.
Oh God, yeah, we can do a little after that. We'll do something like that.
Yeah, definitely, man. It'd be great.
We'll go a little more in depth a few weeks from now. But with all that being said, Jamey, thank you so much again for coming on. I appreciate it.
One last thing. Lucas Peterson is a name to keep an eye out for the Philadelphia. He's an underrated player. I'm telling you, from Modo Hockey in Sweden.
Lucas Peterson, I got that mental note taken. All right. With all that being said, thank you all for tuning in again to another episode of Flyera Gonna Flyera. We will see you next week, probably in a couple of weeks. We are going to do one more of these before the draft. I promise you that. Date's still to be determined, but we'll let you know more once we figure that out. But with all that being said, take care, everyone, and let's go Flyers.